So in this lecture, we will move on to the sedimentation with coagulation, which is actually maybe coming under the secondary treatment, or it can again it can be coming it can come under both secondary, tertiary, or primary treatment. So according to the type of wastewater we are using, it will differ. Okay, actually in our case we are considering it as a secondary treatment. And as we have discussed earlier, the water decontamination technologies are of three types: primary, secondary, and tertiary. We are now moving on to the secondary treatment, in which we will discuss two things. One is sedimentation aided with coagulation, and the second thing is filtration. Out of the two, we will discuss the first one today. Okay. So what is the sedimentation aided with coagulation? In this, we are just using a chemical known as coagulants. Okay, so the property of that chemical is this coagulants have the capacity to combine the fine particles together and to form a flock, a combination of all the particles. It will form a flock, and this flock will be much denser than that of the actually present particles or fine particles. So it have the tendency to settle down. So this is the thing happening in sedimentation aided with coagulation. We will add some chemicals. These chemicals have the capacity to combine all the fine particles and form flock, or react with the water chemicals in water to form a flock. This flock have the capacity to deposit all the particles present in the water. So that is the thing we are doing. Mainly this method is used for removing the very fine particles which cannot be removed by plain sedimentation. Okay. And the purpose of coagulation is making particles of bigger size by adding certain chemicals known as coagulants to water. And the coagulants reacts with the impurities in the water and convert them into settleable size. And the coagulation is to be adopted when the turbidity of the water exceeds 40 ppm. Turbidity is mainly caused due to the presence of suspended matter. So we'll add this coagulants when the turbidity is greater than 40 ppm. Turbidity of water is greater than 40 ppm. After coagulation, we have to settle the water for sedimentation, and then after that we'll move on to filtration. So actually coagulation is not a single step. We have to follow it with sedimentation as well as filtration. Then only all the particles or flocks will be removed from the water. And the main principle of coagulation has two steps actually. First one is the flock formation. Flock formation means the coagulants, when dissolved thoroughly with the water, produces a gelatinous precipitate known as flock. As I have said earlier, this coagulants, when it is mixed with water, we have to mix it thoroughly with water, then it will form a gelatinous precipitate, which is known as flock. Okay, this flock have a tendency to arrest all the other fine particles in water and settle down at the bottom of the tank. So this is the thing, first principle. Okay. The second thing is, this flock will have positive charge. Always this flock will have positive charge, and this will attract the negative charged clay particles if present in the water. Okay, positive has charge always have the tendency to attract negative charges. So in water, if there are some clay particles is generally negatively charged. So this positively charged flock will attract the negatively charged clay particles, and it will combinedly settle down at the bottom of the tank. So these are the two principles of coagulation. Now, a term which is in close contact with this coagulation is flocculation. Flocculation is nothing but, we have already said that this coagulants, when it is mixed with water, will form flocks or gelatinous substances known as flocks. Okay, the process of forming flocks is known as flocculation. The process of flock formation due to the addition of coagulants is known as flocculation. And there are several factors which influence the efficiency of flocculation. Actually, when we are using this coagulants, the flocculation have to be more. Okay, then only all the particles in the water will settle down at the bottom. Okay, so the efficiency of the flocculation will depend upon many factors. So these are some of the factors which influences efficiency of flocculation. One is the dosage of the coagulant. How much amount of coagulants should be given to the water, that depends upon the that influences the efficiency of coagulation. Normally the turbidity, we have to add the coagulants in such a way that the turbidity should be brought down to 10 to 25 ppm. When the turbidity is 40 or above, we have to brought the turbidity to 10 to 25 ppm. That much amount of coagulants you have to add. Second thing is feeding. How we are feeding this coagulant into the water. We can feed it in two ways. One is in powder form, other one is solution form. So it depends upon the type of the water and the type of the coagulants used. So accordingly, the efficiency of the flocculation will increase. Third thing is mixing. After feeding this coagulants into this water, we have to mix it thoroughly with water. So what method we are used for mixing the coagulants? That also affects the efficiency of flocculation. And the next thing is, an important thing is pH value. So when we are adding some coagulants, actually the addition of this coagulants mainly depends upon the pH value of this water. Okay, there are certain pH at which coagulants cannot be added. So each of the there are many coagulants. So each of the coagulants have a particular desirable range of pH. So you have to just adjust the pH accordingly. So this is a factor which affects the efficiency of flocculation. And the final thing is the velocity. The velocity of water is the another thing. The water should be moved or flowed at a particular minimum velocity in such a way that it should give a detention period of 3 to 4 hours inside the tank. So that it can settle down all the flocks or sludges at the bottom. So these are the main factors which affects the efficiency of flocculation. The main coagulants used in water are aluminum sulfate, chlorinated copperas, ferrous sulfate and lime combinedly, magnesium carbonate, polyelectrolytes and sodium aluminate. We will see each of them. Aluminum sulfate is nothing but alum which we are using in our home for cleaning the wells. So it is also known as filter alum or alum. Its chemical composition is Al2SO4 thrice 18H2O. It is hydrated aluminum sulfate, and usually it is found in the form of flocks or solid lumps, and these lumps are dissolved in water and applied. Okay, in the solution form we will apply into water. What is the thing happening when we are adding alum is, when we add alum to water, the bicarbonate alkalinity inside the water may contain some amount of bicarbonate alkalinity. So this alum will react with this bicarbonate, calcium bicarbonate or whatever bicarbonate which is present in the water, to form aluminum hydroxide. Okay, so aluminum hydroxide is formed. This act as a flock. Okay, this aluminum hydroxide is not soluble in water, so it will act as a flock and it will remove all the other fine particles from the water. And but as a result of this reaction, calcium sulfate is also formed as a byproduct. This can cause permanent hardness and lead to corrosion, but we have to avoid this. So alum is advantages as well as disadvantages, because when this alum is used, calcium sulfate is formed which is able to cause permanent hardness in water and can lead to corrosion. So we have to just consider that also. And if the water has no alkalinity in it, then we have to add lime along with aluminum sulfate, and this aluminum sulfate reacts with the lime to produce again aluminum hydroxide, which is a flock which can remove all the fine particles. So if the water is not alkaline, we have to add lime along with alum. And the effective pH between which the alum can act as a coagulant is 6.5 to 8.5 range, and the dosage of alum depends upon all these factors. Mainly we will provide 5 to 30 milligram per liter for normal water, and usually we will use 14 milligram per liter. This is the range, but we will use 14 milligram per liter normally. The advantages of this alum are, it is a very cheap coagulant, it is simple in working, it reduces the taste, color and turbidity of water, and the flock formed by this alum is very much better. It is very hard and produces crystal clear water. There are certain disadvantages also. It is difficult to dewater the sludge, not easy to dispose it of. There is a hard flock. This aluminum sulfate will form a very hard flock which is not disposable. So that is a main disadvantage. And the pH range of this particular coagulant is very low. So we have seen the pH range. It was between I think between 6.5 and 8.5 and below that. Okay, so when it is below that, we have to just, that means it will work in an alkaline pH. So we have to additionally add some lime or caustic soda into that. So this will increase the cost. So that is a disadvantage. The second type of coagulant is chlorinated copperas. So it is nothing but a mixture of ferric sulfite and ferric chloride. It is a mixture of ferric sulfite and ferric chloride. These both are coagulants actually. This both can separately act as coagulant, but when they are mixed together, it can be efficiently act as a coagulant. So actually it is formed by adding chlorine to this ferrous sulfate. We will get ferric sulfate as well as ferric chloride. This combination is used for used as the coagulant in water. And what will happen is, when this ferric sulfate is added with water, the calcium hydroxide in water, we can uh, uh, use this both separately as well as with lime. Okay, along with lime also we can use. When ferric sulfate added with this lime, it will act, both will act and form the calcium sulfate as well as ferric hydroxide. Also in the case of ferric chloride also, ferric chloride acts with this lime to form ferric hydroxide. So this ferric hydroxide is a common byproduct which act as a flock. Okay, again this flock is used for removal of all the other particles from this water. So the normal pH for ferric sulfate is 4 to 7 and above 9. Ferric chloride is 3.5 to 6.5 and above 8.5. So it will be effective at this pH only. And the third type of coagulant is ferrous sulfate and lime. So normally lime is used along with all these coagulants. Ferrous sulfate, when reacts with the lime, form ferric hydroxide, calcium sulfate as well as water. This ferric hydroxide again acts with the dissolved oxygen in water to form ferric hydroxide. Ferrous hydroxide acts with dissolved oxygen to form ferric hydroxide. Ferric hydroxide, you all know, it is a flock. Again, it will remove all the impurities from the water. Effective pH is 8.5 and above. Another coagulant is magnesium carbonate. Magnesium carbonate, when added with lime, reacts with lime to form magnesium hydroxide, which is a coagulant. Okay, which is a flock, not a coagulant, which is a flock. And the advantages of this magnesium carbonate is, the main advantage of this magnesium carbonate is, so here you can see that this magnesium carbonate reacts with the lime in water, or we are adding the lime along with it, react with it, and it will form magnesium hydroxide. This magnesium hydroxide can be added with carbon dioxide to form this magnesium carbonate again. Okay, when we are, this is a flock actually. This flock removes all the suspended matter in the water, and it will be settled down at the bottom as sludge. Okay, this sludge is removed or taken out, and we can again separate the magnesium carbonate from this magnesium hydroxide. So again it can be reused. Okay, that is the main advantage of this magnesium carbonate. And this can it has a capacity to remove organic color, turbidity, and iron and manganese from water. And the flock formed by this is more heavier. So I mean, it is heavier than that of other coagulants, and it has higher settling property. So this is the advantage of magnesium carbonate. Another coagulant is polyelectrolyte. It is nothing, it has actually, there are different types of they are actually a special type of polymer. Okay, they are classified as three types: anionic, cationic and non-ionic. According to the charge of the polymer, we are categorized them into three types: anionic, cationic and non-ionic. Normally the cationic polyelectrolytes are used as coagulants. They are used as coagulants. These are the trade names of these polyelectrolytes available in market in foreign countries. But in India, we will use a natural polyelectrolyte. It is the extract from Nirmali seeds. Nirmali is actually a tree, a deciduous tree, and its seeds are used as polyelectrolyte in India. Okay, it is normally available in Andhra Pradesh, Konkan, Madhya Pradesh, Bengal and Orissa. This type of trees are available there. So these are used as polyelectrolytes. Another type of coagulant is sodium aluminate. Its chemical composition is Na2Al2O4, and this again, when this is added to water, this will act with the salts of calcium and magnesium in water. There may be some calcium or magnesium salts in water. So this will act with all the salts in the water to form calcium aluminate. Calcium aluminate. So this sodium aluminate, when it reacts with calcium bicarbonate, it will produce calcium aluminate. When it reacts with calcium chloride also, it will produce calcium aluminate. When it reacts with calcium sulfate also, it will produce aluminate. If any of these salts are present in water, this coagulant will produce calcium aluminate, which is a flock. Okay, that flock can remove all the fine particles from water, and the normal pH is 6 to 8.5. But this thing is very costly. It is a very effective coagulant, but it is very costly. So it is not economical and cannot be used for a large scale area. So these are the different types of coagulants which are used for removing the sediments or suspended matter from water. And we now know the different types of coagulants. Now how can we feed these coagulants? We have to feed this coagulants into our water, our wastewater. Okay, how can we feed that? We can feed it in two forms. One is dry feeding and the other one is wet feeding. Dry feeding means the coagulants are fed in the form of powder. Wet feeding means the coagulants are fed in the form of solution, just like alum. Okay, so we will see each of them. The dry feeding, you all know that it is the coagulants are provided in powder form and then allowed to fall in the mixing channel in a measured quantity. In a particular dosage, we will provide the powder into the channel. And this dry feeding is used when the coagulants possess uniformity of grains and composition. It is in uniform shape and size, and they are free from hygroscopic or efflorescent characteristics. When the powder has no hygroscopic nature, then only we can use this for dry feeding. Okay, if it is hygroscopic, then what will happen? That powder will become solution. So we cannot use dry feeding methodology. Okay, that is the thing. So the main situations at which the dry feeding can be used is, it is simple in operation, so it can be used. It is relatively less space is required for this process, and it maintains a cleanliness. Since it is powder, it will not cause much uh, problems. Okay, and it grants freedom from corrosion. Corrosion will be less. Corrosion of the pipelines and other distribution systems will be less when we are using dry feeding methodology. For dry feeding, we will use two devices. One is a toothed wheel and dry feeding using helical screw. So two devices are used for dry feeding of the coagulants into the water. So this is a toothed wheel. In this, what we are doing is, this is our mixing channel. Okay, so this is a conical hopper, inside which there is a toothed wheel. There is a wheel having tooths at the ends, and inside the conical hopper there is a agitating plate which is moving radially. Okay, so water is present here. We will add coagulant. So water is present here. We will add coagulant. This coagulant is fed into this toothed wheel. So this toothed wheel will be rotating. The rotation of the toothed wheel will maintain the correct dosage of this coagulant into this mixing channel. Okay, correct amount of or dosage of the coagulant is maintained by this rotation of this toothed wheel. Okay, so this is the thing. This is how we are feeding the coagulant into this mixing channel. This is one way. And the other thing is helical screw. Instead of that toothed wheel, we are providing a helical screw. The speed of the helical screw regulates the quantity of coagulant, and it is connected to a Venturi device at the water pipe, near the water pipe, so that it will get mixed with this water mixing channel, in the mixing channel. So these are the two types of devices which are used for dry feeding of coagulants into water. Now we will move on to wet feeding. As I have said earlier, wet feeding is used when we can apply the coagulants in the form of a solution. Okay. So, so there are again two methods for applying this wet feeding. Wet feeding by conical plug and float. Wet feeding by adjustable weir and float. So I will explain it with the help of a figure. So this is the figure for conical plug and float. Here what we are doing is, this is our conical plug. This is our coagulant feeding constant head tank. So this is where our coagulant solution is placed. There is a pulley here. This pulley is attached to a rack and pinion arrangement, and this rack and pinion is attached to the float, and this is a float chamber. So this is the chamber at which the coagulant along with the water will come. After mixing of the coagulant, the water will come here. So when the level of water is increased, what will happen? This float will come up, and as a result, the rack and pinion arrangement will move up, and the pulley will move down. So conical plug will plug this. Okay. So when water is higher in this conical plug will be plugged here. So when water lowers here, this will be coming down and the conical plug will move up. So more amount of coagulants will be discharged into this water. So by using this conical plug, we will control the discharge from this coagulant feeding tank. Okay, we can control the dosage of this coagulant tank. So this is the mechanism of a wet feeding by conical plug and float. So likewise, there is another device, wet feeding by adjustable weir and float. So we will see the figure. Here, instead of the conical plug, what we are doing is, we will give an adjustable weir which is connected to a lever having a counterweight, and again a float is there. What will happen is, again the same thing happens. When there is higher amount of water here, this counterweight will come down, float will move up, and the counterweight will come down, the adjustable lever closes, and the amount of coagulants which is given to this mixing channel will decrease. So that is the thing which is happening here. Thus we can control the dosage of this solution of coagulant. So this is how we will feed the coagulants into the water. But the one thing you have to notice, this feeding is not essential. I mean, not uh, 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 by feeding the coagulants itself, the process is not completed. After feeding, we have to mix it. Okay, mix the coagulant thoroughly in water. So then only our aim will be satisfied. So now how we can mix this coagulants? We will use many devices for mixing. First one is a centrifugal pump. Second thing is compressed air, hydraulic gem method, mixing channel, mixing basins with baffle holes, and mixing basins with mechanical means. So all these are used for mixing the coagulants. So first when we will see centrifugal pumps. In case if we are using centrifugal pumps for mixing, what we are doing is, we will give the coagulant solution at the suction end of this centrifugal pump. At the suction pipe, we will provide this coagulants. So what will happen at the suction, when these coagulants are entered, it will reach the periphery, I mean it will reach the center of the centrifugal pump, and it will get rotated. So at the same time, what will happen, the mixing will occur simultaneously. Okay, so that is the thing. So we will apply the coagulant at the suction pipe of the pump, and it will cause an agitation and mixing of the coagulants in the centrifugal pump. If you are using compressed air, what we are doing is, we will provide this compressed air at the bottom of the mixing channel. So in the channel at the bottom, we will provide this compressed air. So this compressed air will move up. Okay, due to this pressure, it will move up. So while it is moving up, what will happen? This coagulant will get mixed with that water, thoroughly mixed with that water. That is the second way of mixing of coagulant. And the third way of mixing the coagulant is providing a hydraulic jump. You all know what is a hydraulic jump. When a normal flow becomes a critical flow, or more than a critical flow, supercritical flow, when its velocity increases very much, then there will be a jump there. Okay, a jump will occur there. So that jump is able to mix the chemicals in water, okay, or coagulants in water. So we are producing a hydraulic jump by means of some flumes. So this thing, what will happen is, we are providing the raw water here, the coagulant is provided from here, so both are fed along with it, and it will be moved along this channel. We will provide a flume here. Flume means a restriction we will provide here. So at that time, what will happen is, this area will be decreased. So the coagulants, while passing through this, will have a jump occurs at this place, because suddenly its area is decreased and velocity is increased. So there is a chance for occurring of a jump. So during the process of hydraulic jump, occurring of hydraulic jump, what will happen? This coagulant will get thoroughly mixed with this water. So this is one method. And the another one is the next one is mixing channel. So the same figure, in the same figure we can have a mixing channel. So this is nothing but they are baffles. They are actually baffles. They are just a restriction. Okay, restriction to the flow. So this also can produce a similar hydraulic jump like uh, procedure, and it can enable the mixing of the coagulants with this water. So they are all simple methods. And another method of mixing of coagulants is mixing basins with baffle walls. They are of actually two types: horizontal or round, the end type, and vertical or over and under type. You can see the figure and we will explain that. So this is the horizontal or round end type mixing basin with baffle walls. Here what we are, this is a plan view. What we are doing is we will provide this is the inlet. So from the inlet we will provide the water with the coagulants. Water which is fed with the coagulants is given here, and inside this mixing channel there will be baffle walls will be provided like this. Okay, so what will happen, this water will enter here. The water along with the coagulants will be given at a higher velocity. So with the higher velocity it will move here and come out through this outlet at the bottom end or at the other side. So while moving through this baffles, it will have enough time for getting mixed with the coagulant. That is the thing. And the second method of using the baffle wall is vertical or over and under type. In this is a sectional view. In that case, we will provide the baffles in a vertical manner. In the earlier case, we have provided it in a horizontal manner. In this case, we will provide the baffle. This is the sectional view, while this was a plan view. Okay. So in this, we will provide the baffles in a vertical manner, and the inlet and outlet will be at the same top portion. So the water with the coagulants will reach here, and it will cross along these baffles, and it will come out through this outlet. So while moving like this, it will get enough time for mixing. So normally the velocity of flow through this baffles will be 15 to 45 centimeter per second. We will maintain the velocity at that range. And the detention period means the time taken from this point to this point for a single grain of water to travel. So it is 20 to 50 minutes will be taking. So this is how the mixing occurs. And the final means by which we can mix the coagulants is mixing basins with mechanical means. Here what we are doing is we will use the mechanical energy for mixing the coagulants with water. There are two types again, flash mixers as well as slow mixers. Slow mixers are otherwise known as flocculators. So we can see each of them. First one is a flash mixer. In the flash mixer what we are doing is, here you can see in this figure, there is a tank. This is our mixing tank. This is an inlet. Through the inlet we will provide the water only. Okay, and there is another pipe, coagulant pipe. Through this coagulant pipe we will provide the coagulant solution. So it will have the coagulant solution meets the water at this point. At this point what we are doing is we will provide a rod with a paddle, a rotating paddle at the other end. So this paddle will get rotated when this driving unit is operated. So here there is a deflecting wall. So this deflecting wall is provided for diverting the water into this paddle, or for approaching this paddle. Okay, so the water is diverted to the paddle. So this paddle is rotated. So both this coagulants as well as the water get mixed at this point, and the mixed water will be taken out through the outlet. So the sludge will be, or flock will be deposited at the bottom, and it can be removed by using the drain valve. So this is a flash mixer. Mixing basins with mechanical means flash mixer. Okay. And the second thing is slow mixer or fluctuator. Slow mixer is otherwise known as fluctuator. Instead of the pad, they will be given with a vertical shaft along with a number of paddles at the bottom, and they will be rotated at a very slow velocity, normally 15 to 40 2 to 3 revolutions per minute will be there for this vertical shaft and this paddle. So from the inlet, the water along with this coagulant will be given, and due to the rotation mixing will take place, and from the outlet the water is removed while the sludge is removed by using this drain valve. Okay, normally a detention period of 15 to 40 minutes will be given for the travel of water from this inlet to the outlet. So this is about the mixing of the coagulant. Now we have mixed the coagulants. Now we should know how much amount of coagulants to be mixed. The dosage of coagulant, how much to be mixed. That we can find out by means of jar test. A test used for finding the coagulants, amount of coagulants to be mixed in water. So this is a very simple test. In that what we are doing is, I'll show you the figure. What we are doing is, here there are many number of jars or conical flask. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 jars are there. So any number you can take. And there is a driving unit here. This driving unit have a paddle and a rod in each of the jar. Okay, there is a paddle and a rod in each of the jar provided, and it has a stirring ability, so it will drive and the pad will be rotating inside the jar. So first what we will do is, we will place the jars. Inside that we will add the water to be tested, or to be coagulated. So water will be added first. Now what we will do is, we will add separate amount of different amounts of coagulants in each. For example, if we have to test the dosage of alum, what we are doing is, we will take different amounts of alum and we will add different amounts of 10 milliliter here, 100 ml of alum here, 1000 ml of alum here, like that different dosages of coagulants will be added in each jar. And we will operate the driving unit. While operating the driving unit, what will happen, this rods will be rotating and mixing of this coagulants in water will occur in all the jars. So when the coagulants are mixed, flocks will be formed and sludge will be deposited at the bottom, and we will analyze the type of the sludge or type of the flocks formed. Okay, so the amount of coagulant in jar which produces good flock or good sludge with least amount of coagulant is preferred as the good dosage. Okay, that particular dose will be used for removing the sediments from water. And the test is repeated by varying the speed of paddles and time of mixing. So this is the jar test for finding the dosage of coagulant. This is how we are doing coagulation aided with sedimentation. And this is about today's lecture. Thank you.